To me, Harvest Home means hope.
Harvest Home is an empowering place.
Harvest Home is a blessing to me and my baby.
Harvest Home provided me a safe place.
Harvest Home is my family, and I'm so grateful to be a part of them.
Harvest Home changed my life.
Hi, I'm Marlo Thomas.
And I'm Phil Donahue.
And we love Harvest Home.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wilson, Executive Director of Harvest Home, and I'm joining you tonight from our brand new home, the Pico Home, which will be opening next year. And I'm excited to share more with you about that later tonight. But first, I want to thank you for joining us for this conversation about essential relationships. This year, we've all had time to think about what is most essential in our lives. And at Harvest Home, our mission is essential to all that we do, providing housing and support to homeless pregnant women, equipping women for motherhood, and working to end generational homelessness. But there's another essential element at the core of our mission: relationships. Relationships are at the core of everything we do at Harvest Home. Relationships between our staff and our resident moms and babies, with our volunteers and our mentors and our class teachers, and our many supporters like you who make our work possible. We know relationships are not just essential to our work, but also to all of us in all of our lives. So tonight we wanted to give you a gift, an investment in one of the most essential relationships: marriage. So tonight we have two legendary guests joining us to share with us the building blocks to a lasting marriage. You'll get to meet Phil Donahue and Marlo Thomas shortly, but first, let me introduce our host, Lorri Antosz Benson. Lorri Antosz Benson is a two-time Emmy Award-winning television producer, and she worked for many years as a senior producer for Donahue. She's a writer, authoring 4 books, 3 on adoption, and a blog for empty nesters called Feathering My Empty Nest. And she's the founder and CEO of Family Matters, her family advocacy organization. Plus, she's a mom of 4, a grandmother to 6, and a close friend and supporter to Harvest Home. Lorri serves on our board of directors. Thank you so much, Lorri, for joining us tonight for this conversation on essential relationships.
I'm here in Venice, in the Venice Harvest Home. Happy to be here, really excited about the conversation we're going to have with 2 truly amazing people. They are the authors of this book, What Makes a Marriage Last. And it's 2 people that we all know and admire so much. Let me just tell you a few things about them. Marlo Thomas is an award-winning actress, author, and activist whose body of work has earned her 4 Emmy Awards, the George Foster Peabody Award, a Golden Globe, a Grammy, an induction into the Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and in 2014, President Barack Obama awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor a civilian can receive. Marlo is also the National Outreach Director for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, the hospital that was founded by her father, Danny Thomas. This book is her 8th book. And Phil Donahue is a writer, producer, journalist, and media pioneer who revolutionized the talk show format. The Donahue Show was honored with 20 Daytime Emmys, 10 for the show, 10 for Outstanding Host. And in 1996, Phil was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contributions to television journalism. He has been inducted into the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame, and he's also a recipient of the George Foster Peabody Award. Phil and Marlo, I'm just so excited to have this. After I worked for 15 years with Phil, I was a senior producer and the best boss I ever had. And Marlo, I've known you too. It's been actually 40 years.
Wow.
My first day on the job, you were on your honeymoon. So I just want to start out quickly with a brief anecdote. I don't know if you remember this, Marlo, but you were instrumental in getting my now 35-year marriage started. You and Phil had been commuting, and it was the last day of the shows in Chicago because now we were all moving to New York. And my boyfriend then, Steve, came up to you at one of the parties and said, I've fallen in love with this girl and now she's moving. What's your advice for a long distance relationship? And you said, don't do it. If there's not a commitment, don't do it. And he proposed to me 5.5 days later.
Wow.
And so it's because of you, I think, that our marriage got started, and now it's been a wonderful, wonderful 35 years.
Oh, yes, we love him. He's a great guy. He's a great guy.
He's the best. That advice that you gave him was based on, the difficulties that you had with your commuting in those first years. Will you share some advice from your new book, What Makes a Marriage Last? Other advice for getting through tough times like that? And would you share that wonderful story of the middle of the night phone call from Phil?
When I gave that advice to Steve, it was because it was so difficult to keep a commuter marriage or commuter relationship. We were just in a commuter relationship. I was living in LA and he was living in Chicago, and it was just impossible. He had something that Steve didn't have, which is 5 kids. And then he had the show. It was very hard. And I was working as a producer. I made about 12 movies for TV at that time. So I was very busy. He was very busy. And on top of that, he had these kids. Anyway, we decided to break up. It was too much. It was very tearful. We said we loved each other and it was been wonderful, but it's impossible. We can't put our lives together.
Right.
I can't work in Chicago. He can't work in LA. So it was just too much. So we broke up for 3 months and it was terrible. I was in a lot of pain, and I would go out with other people, and then I'd come home and cry. And it was obvious, as far as I was concerned, he was done with me. He never called me. And I assume he thought the same, she's never called. But it seemed like such a break. He said, I can't do it. And I said, well, I can't either. So that's that, Right. So then he called me in the middle of the night. You remember what you said? You better remember.
I never thought anyone could be this important to me.
Mm-hmm. You said this irreplaceable.
Irreplaceable.
I never thought anyone could be this irreplaceable. And then we got together and made a life work, So I moved to New York to be closer to Chicago. He said, let me get my boys through high school, and then I'll move to New York. And he moved the show, as you know, once his boys graduated. So we got married in 1980, and he didn't move till 1985. So we had another 5 years of commuting.
Yeah.
We were 2 hours closer to each other, but it was very, very hard. And so when Steve asked me that question, I really meant it. I said, unless this is really the one, I wouldn't do this just to keep going together,
Right. Yes, that's exactly what you
interviewed Judge Judy Scheinlin and her husband, Jerry Scheinlin. And she said, I asked her what attracted her to her husband. And she said, I just knew when I met him, he was the one I had to have. I had to have him only. And she turned to Phil and she said, well, Phil, there were a lot of girls in Chicago. Why did you have to have this girl? Why did you have to move from Chicago to New York? Because you had to have this particular girl.
Right.
She said, that's what it is. And you can't quantify it.
When we made our way through this book, a lot of people, usually the men, would say, I knew when I saw her, I wanted to marry her. That's an amazing thing when you think about it.
Right.
When Phil and I met on his show, we didn't think to ourselves, this is the one, but we certainly were extremely attracted to each other.
Oh my gosh, yes, everybody in the country could see it.
And Phil doesn't remember some of these things. Do you remember what you said to Susan O'Connell, his next door neighbor? She came over and she had watched the show and she said, oh my God, what went on with you today? Do you remember what you said?
She's my fantasy
woman.
My fantasy woman.
Oh my gosh, yes, I remember that story. Well, so tell me this. Let's go to the obvious question now with COVID. After 40 plus years together, have the last year's 24/7 sheltering at home brought you any new discoveries about each other, or any advice for couples who are possibly feeling a little too much togetherness?
I think we learned a lot of things being sheltered in place about each other. What would you say that you learned?
Well, I'm impressed with her energy. I mean, she's a water bug. You know, she can make a right turn and
Right.
Also, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about her that I hadn't realized before.
What did you learn?
How much you get done.
Phil and I are very different personalities.
Right.
You know, he's, as you know, he thinks something through. He's not impulsive. He's going to come up on something having thought about it. I, on the other hand, jump for the telephone for a solution now.
Yeah.
And working on the book, at first that was kind of a problem, because I was saying, well, what do you mean? Let's do this. And he would say, hey, back off. Let's just think about it. So after doing 40 of them, or during the course of doing 40 of them, we saw that sometimes it was good to step back, and sometimes it was good to jump for the phone. So I think I started to appreciate the fact that he didn't jump so impulsively, and he started to appreciate that I sometimes did jump impulsively. So that I think is the most interesting thing that we learned working on the book. Living together as we do, we're lucky that we each have our own study. And so we have a place to go to. Yeah. That's been a big benefit to us.
Yeah, those are good tips. Those are very good tips.
Yeah.
Phil, you, like I mentioned, you were an amazing boss, and you took all of us, your whole staff, on a couple of really legendary, very memorable trips during my time with you. And for a couple of them, our children were very small, and we took heat from some people for leaving our young children. You know, one trip was 3 weeks, and people would say, how can you leave your kids like that? But we always believed in making time for our marriage, for just the two of us. And in the chapter with Bert and Letty Cotton Pogrebin, I love what Letty said regarding that. Do you remember? Can you tell me that story and what you can say about children?
I found that so inspiring. And she said it years before I knew Phil. She had 3 children, twin girls who were about 12 years old. It was a very close family. But the girls came to her one day and said, Mom, we feel very left out because you and Dad celebrate your birthdays alone together, and you celebrate your anniversary alone together, and we're left out of that. And we don't think that's right. And she said to them, we love you more than anything in the world, but you are not our marriage. And I thought, wow.
Yep.
Well, I wish my parents had said that to me. Yes. So you get the feeling for how important your marriage is.
Right.
And she said to them, someday you'll have marriages of your own, and you will thank Daddy and I for this.
Right.
And for us, I was a stepmom, you know, it made it a little bit harder because I didn't want to look like the one who took their father away from them. But he handled it very well. I mean, Phil made it really clear that our vacations, he only got, as you remember, in those years, 2 weeks off.
Right.
And the 2 weeks off would be the two of us alone going away every year. And that was, I think, a very important example for them. Mm-hmm. And it was certainly important for our marriage.
Yeah.
And one of the sons said to Marlo, we like it when you're here because Dad doesn't have as many spasms. So, you know, Dad is having a spaz, 2 Z's. You know,
did Marlo know what that meant?
After a while.
Yeah, after a while. Well, I mean, I got it, you know,
right?
Because he was alone with his kids, scared to death. How the hell to raise them while he's running to work every morning at 7 a.m. or 6:30 to be on the air at 9, and running back to take Jimmy to guitar lesson, and running back to go to Kevin's baseball game. I mean, poor guy, you know, he was really knocking himself
then
out.
I would hear them on the phone say, I'll have to call you back. My dad is having a spaz.
He was having panic attacks in a way, anxiety attacks. And I think when I was around, well, that's what Michael said. He said, when you're here, Dad's a lot happier. If I was there, then Dad was there more. So I definitely was good news for them.
Yes. In the book, you talk about jealousy a lot with the couples. It is a big issue. And I loved the Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelo story. Can you tell us that and what you learned about how to handle jealousy in a marriage?
Mark was he making a movie in Boston?
Right. You know.
And he called her one night and she didn't answer, or she wasn't there.
It was before cell phones. He finally got her on the phone.
Yeah. And she said, oh, I'm just doing some cleaning around the house or whatever. And he thought that the answer sounded fishy, as he put it. So he started, once the jealousy starts to revolve in your brain, it gets worse and worse and bigger.
Yeah.
And he got on a plane and flew home without telling her.
He said to the doorman, "Tell Kelly that flowers are coming up for her."
Oh, right.
So she opened the door waiting for the flowers, and she sees her husband come off the elevator.
Running down the hallway, runs right past her. He's in the apartment looking for the tall, dark stranger that he knows is hiding behind the drapes. I mean, this is what, this was so honest. I mean, this is what jealousy can do to you.
So funny.
I mean, it's very draining. It's great when you can get past that. And
how would you know?
Yeah, well, Marlo once made a movie with Chris Christopherson. And there was a kissing scene in the movie.
Right, there was a love scene.
Yeah, that lasted 3 years, I thought. And that was a hard time for me.
He was very sure that something was going on between me and Chris Christopherson.
Oh, well, it's hard to, it would be very hard to watch your spouse.
Yeah.
Scene.
Harvest Home is all about nurturing one of life's most essential relationships, the relationship between a mother and her baby. By supporting Harvest Home, you help provide a home, and for physical needs, you provide therapy support, parenting education, childbirth education, and doula support, and so much more that equips a mom to develop a strong and lasting bond that sets the stage for a healthy life for both mom and baby. To learn more about supporting our mission, check out our website at harvesthomela.org/essential.
I do have a question from one of our viewers, and it's from Amy in Los Angeles asking, what are some practical examples of how to keep pursuing each other after years of marriage? I guess how to keep it alive after years of marriage.
What do you think?
Well, it helps if you're the wife, if you can meet your husband at the door wrapped in cellophane.
We did a show on that, Phil.
Yes, we did.
What I think is, if you're in love with your mate and if you like them, then show it. Every little touch, every little kiss. I really like my husband, and I like the way he smells right here in his neck. I always put my nose in there and give him a little nuzzle. I like to talk to him. I like to sit with him over a meal that we make together, and also not being stingy with your compliments. If I think Phil looks really handsome, or I really love his haircut, I say, you look so cute. That haircut is so great. I love that color on you. He does the same with me. He'll say, God, you look great. Your body's looking great. You're really working out. There's stuff going on that's a little bit of a courtship. If you drop that, you're dead.
The song is titled Little Things Mean a Lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lyric from that song I've always thought was meaningful, and touch my hair as you pass my chair. Little things mean a lot. Wow, why didn't I think of that? You know?
Right. You know, that reminds me of Alan and Arlene Alda were talking about expressing their love for one another, you know, that, and he wondered, do other, you know, I do it a lot. Do other people do that a
Right.
lot? And that seems like that's an important thing. That's kind of what you're saying is express your love in little ways.
Bob Woodward, who you know, of course, is the Pulitzer Prize winning Washington Post journalist, and has this book out now called Rage, which is all the rage. He and his wife, Elsa, say, I love you every morning and every night before they go to sleep. And I said, is that, do you want to say something?
Well, was it
Bob and Elsa?
was he the one who said, it helps your marriage if you sleep tushy to tushy?
Oh, that was Judith Viors.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, she said have a double bed, don't have a big bed. Because
Right.
then if you sleep tushy to tushy, it's hard to be mad at somebody.
Right. Oh, I love that.
When we asked Bob Woodward, do you say I love you before you go to bed at night? I mean, is that, no, do you say I love you because you've had an argument or something? He said, no, it's our way of saying everything's fine in our nest. We're good. It's just a way of reminding each other that.
Yes.
And so we've started to do that too. And it's just a way. We don't do it every day, morning and night, but we do it often now. One of us will say it and then the other one will say it back. It's just a way of reminding each other that, you know, there's a reason why we're here together.
Right. You know, so you're saying you've picked that up, you know, from after doing the book and hearing that story. So, you know, after 40 years, I would think that you've figured each other out, but it sounds like maybe you've learned some maybe habits or behaviors from some of these couples. Have you adopted any others in your marriage?
I really, from the book, another thing that I learned was Michael J. Fox's wife, Tracy Pollan, said, you've got to give each other the benefit of the doubt. She said, when the other person says some stupid ass thing that really hurts your feelings, instead of like really going to war, just step back a second and say, I don't think he really meant it like that. I mean, give him the benefit of the doubt. He was a good guy all week. You know, you love him, he loves you. He didn't know it was going to land like that. You know, calm down, give it the benefit of the doubt. If you need to express it, you know, wait a day or so and then say, you know, the other day when you said that, I just want you to know that I don't like that. It hurt my feelings. But not when you're all upset.
James Carville said something similar, same kind of thing.
What did he say?
James Carville said, when you find yourself getting into an argument, you know, maybe over and over again, say out loud, oh, let's kick this can down the road. And it's funny, you know, it sounds so trite, shallow, but it works. It does. It changes the nature of the conversation. You avoid all the valleys and
it takes the heat out of it. You know, if you're going around and around, we just burst out laughing the first time Phil said it. You know, we were going around and around about some dumb thing, but you said you put it there, but you didn't, but I said, but you could have, you know, whatever it was. And at one point he said, oh, let's kick this can down the road. And we just started laughing because it's true. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, really, unless somebody's being abusive, what is there to argue about?
Right.
You know, it's just all stupid stuff.
I love that. Another thing that I think Michael J. Fox and Tracy Pollan talked about was gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like gratitude is so important. If I get really mad at Steve, you know, I just think about what if I didn't have him and just try and get that gratitude feeling going. I'm just grateful.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good story.
Yes.
Let's take another one from a viewer. This is from Beth in Fairhope, Alabama. As two well-known celebrities, have you ever found it difficult to balance work and marriage?
Well, I think that's everybody's problem. You know, you don't have to be a celebrity. You know, working couples, and even when the mom isn't working, but she's working like mad at home, and the husband has his issues and she has her issues, and how do they find time away, away from the kids, he away from the kids and the work. I mean, no matter who you are as a husband and wife, you have balance problems.
Right.
And again, it's what we were talking about earlier. It's about making the time, about saying, I miss you. I want to be with you alone. I want to go to dinner, just the two of us. I want to stay at a hotel this weekend. Many couples talked about that. Viola Davis and Julius Tenen, Sting and Trudy Styler. Many people talked about getting out of the house and spending a night at a hotel or a weekend or something to get away from the family, to get away from the work and the family and the telephone, and just be able to be alone. And that's a big deal.
I think that's critical. That's
yeah.
Great. I think that's really good information. So tell me this, I've known you both, 40 years now, and you've never chosen to work together. So what was it about this project? What made you change your mind?
What do you think?
Well, Marlo can change my mind, and she has often.
You've changed my mind too. You got me to get married. That was a big change.
Right. How old were you when you got married?
42.
And you were never going to get married. And,
never.
Yep. And this was the guy that did it.
He asked me to get married 6 months after we met. And I said, I told you, I don't ever want to be married. And he never brought it up again. And then 3 years later, I said, I think I'd like to get married now. In my case, I needed to find myself as a grown-up person. I wanted to get my career settled. I was afraid if I got married, I'd get torn away from my career the way my mother had been torn from hers. And so I wanted to make my way in the world. And I think if I had met Phil when I was in my 20s, I would not have fallen in love and gotten married. I had how you work out a muscle in your arm?
Right.
I'd worked out a muscle around my heart. I was not going to fall into that. So I think I did just exactly what I needed to do. But my advice from my own experience is wait, don't get married in your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Just find out who you are. And then you find a man who knows who he is. That was one of the things Rob Reiner said. He said, if two undeveloped people get married, you're just going to have a mess. But if you've worked on yourself and you know who you are, and your mate has worked on him or herself, and they know who they are, you have got the best chance of coming together and building something new between two developed people.
One of the common features of long marriages, I think, or at least I thought we discovered, there has to be one of the partners who really wants this marriage. At least one.
I thought
ideally both.
Yeah.
But at least one has to have that. And, that's not always the case with all marriages.
Let me just go through a couple of these, see if this works. There's a lot of marriage myths out there, and possibly they're true. Did it seem that these were true when you talked to all these 40 couples? Opposites attract.
I think so. We're opposites.
Yeah, maybe I'm pausing because I don't think it's an absolute, but yeah, maybe that's true. And it's a surprise because so many, blink and fall for the person. It's hard to analyze opposites if that happens to you.
But they're extroverts and introverts,
Right.
Viola is an introvert, Julian is an extrovert. Ray Romano was an extrovert, Anna's an introvert. I mean, there's a lot of those kinds of opposites.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also people who, spend a lot of money and the other one doesn't spend a lot of money. And for us, as I said, I'm impulsive and he's more thoughtful and stepping back. And so you have to kind of get used to that and accommodate it, not get mad about it. And I think in our first couple of years, we fought a lot because he would say, why do you have to be so impulsive? And I would say, why do you have to be so lazy? It wasn't lazy and it wasn't impulsive. It was just how we coped with the information that was coming in.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. How about absence makes the heart grow fonder?
Well, it certainly did for us. Yeah, I mean, that's what brought us back together.
Yeah.
And Bryan Cranston talked about that when he's on movie trips, how much, that, and I think John Leguizamo talked about that. The reason these people were married all this time is that, as Viola said, it's the commitment. You make a promise and you live up to the promise. Ted Danson has been married. This is his third marriage. And I said to him, and it's his wife, Mary Steenburgen's second marriage, and they have a terrific marriage. They're married 30 years now. And I said to him, wow, how did you have the optimism to get married a third time? I mean, I got married once, it almost knocked me out. And he said, I made a decision that I wanted a marriage to work and I was going to stop doing the destructive things I had done all my life. Like I stopped lying. And I said, what did you lie about? He said, everything. He said, first of all, I cheated on my wives, but that aside, he said, I wanted to be a better person than I am. And so I would lie about how I was feeling. I would lie about what I was doing. I wanted to be this perfect person. And that was such an interesting thing. He said, I wanted to be the guy on the white horse who had all the answers. And it wasn't until I realized that I was with a woman who wasn't really interested in that bullshit. Right. And she wasn't really doing that dance. And as I saw that, I became who I was, and she likes me for who I am.
Yeah.
It's such a wonderful story, I thought.
Oh, it was a wonder. I loved that. I loved reading that one. Let's do one more. How about happy wife, happy life? Do you think that's true?
Or happy husband, happy life. Everybody has to be happy. You can't have a happy wife and a happy life. I don't believe that. I don't think that's true.
Okay.
Well, I do.
Well, that's because you're a nice man. But if you're unhappy, I'm not happy. And if I'm unhappy, you're not happy. So.
Well, I think in the sense of the axiom, happy wife, happy life. Really, I mean, being a happy wife really relieves me of a lot of anxiety. Really, I think that's true with most men.
But it's true of most women.
Yeah.
If you were unhappy, how happy could I be?
That's what
I mean, how many times have I said to you, when you seem a little blue, what can I do to make you happy? What can I do? What would you like? Should we make some popcorn? I mean, it's like, I don't want him to be unhappy. I'm not happy if he's unhappy. Whenever I say to Phil, how you doing? He'll go, fine. And I'll say, there's no information in fine.
Right.
Tell me. You have a sad look on your face. You have a blue look on your face. Tell me what it is. And then he'll tell me, and then we'll talk about it. But oh man, I have to drag it out of him. He doesn't have to drag it out of me. He says to me, what's wrong? I go, I'll tell you what's wrong. This one said this and this one did that.
Yeah, that's kind of Mars Venus. I think that's the way we are in many marriages like that. Yeah. Well, I don't know how anybody could not have a long marriage with all of this advice. This has just been amazing. And I told them my copy of your book is well thumbed. The cover's dirty.
Good.
It's a mess because I really enjoyed it. And what makes a marriage last couldn't be better. Just wonderful advice, wonderful book, wonderful people. I love you both.
Thank you, sweetie.
You look great, Lorri.
You look gorgeous.
Thank you.
I love this, Steve, and your thousands of girls. We love.
Look like a ski champion.
You always said that, Phil. Love you. Stay healthy. Great to see you all. Sarah, tell us how we can do more to help Harvest Home.
Thanks, Lorri. That was so much fun. And thanks so much to our special guests, Phil Donahue and Marlo Thomas, and to you, Lorri, for bringing the conversation to life. And thanks to you, our guests, for joining us. I hope you laughed and learned with us tonight. I know I've picked up a few tools that I plan to put in place in my own marriage. In 2021, we're expanding to open a second home that will triple, yes, triple, the families served through our life-changing programs. If you want to have a hand in making this project possible, consider a donation today. Every dollar makes a difference. You can visit our website or text the number on the screen now. And here's a snapshot of all that's in store.
My name is Alex Firestone, and this is my daughter Rory. After living in a van for 9 months, stepping into a room that had a bed, a closet, I felt at home and I felt safe. And for 9 months, I hadn't felt safe or really felt like loved by anyone. So Harvest Home gave us that.
I'm Sarah Wilson, and I'm the Executive Director at Harvest Home. Harvest Home is a residential program for homeless pregnant women that equips women to become great mothers. Here at our home in Venice, we have 10 beds, but we get over 500 calls a year. And the Los Angeles County Health Department estimates that over 5,000 women a year experience homelessness while they're pregnant. Still, there are only 70 beds in the entire county for homeless pregnant women. So thousands of women are going without support.
Before Harvest Home, I was homeless, and I was sleeping at a bus stop, trying to figure out what I was gonna do, how to get a job. You know, it's pretty hard because people wouldn't hire you when you're that pregnant.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I was scared. I was scared because the shelters that I had stayed in as just like a single woman, they were pretty scary environments. Being at Harvest Home, they offer many different classes that help us grow, not only as mothers, but as people and women.
One of my favorite classes is the therapeutic parenting. They help us navigate where we are in life and then help us be the best version of ourselves. Some of us have, gone through a bunch of stuff from childhood and stuff when we were on the streets that they kind of help us navigate how to deal with that and become a better parent.
Over the last 35 years, we've served over 600 families in this home. But we still know that we need to do more. Those calls are still coming in, and we're so limited in what we can do. If you look around here, we are maxed. We're utilizing every square inch of this space. We've been working over the last several years to build our capacity as an organization, and while we were in the process of looking at real estate and having heart attacks over the rising cost of property in LA, this opportunity just fell in our laps. One day we got a call from the Los Angeles Catholic Archdiocese, and essentially they said, "We have a convent, do you want it?" This home will allow us to provide housing and support to an additional 18 mothers and their babies, nearly tripling our impact as an organization. And it's also going to increase the total amount of beds and resources available to homeless pregnant women in our city by nearly 25%. The space is perfect for Harvest Home. We honestly couldn't have imagined a better arrangement, but it's going to take a lot of work to get us where we need to be to serve the moms and babies who will live here.
This year, Harvest Home is undertaking a $4 million capital campaign that will provide funds for two things. Number one, it's going to pay for the renovations of this great location, but also to provide 3 years of operating expenses.
And as long-term supporters, we are so excited about the opportunity that this brings for Harvest Home. Not only will it serve more families and more women, but it gives us a chance to have some more office space and have place for events and programming. So it really is very exciting for Harvest Home.
It's not so much about what Harvest Home gives you. It's not so much about, oh, it gives you shelter, it gives you a bed, it gives you food, it gives you this. It's not that. It's the love and the community that we share. So to know that our community is growing is amazing. I'm excited, I'm ecstatic. And when a mother has comfort, she shares that comfort with her children.
Supporting Harvest Home isn't just supporting an organization. It's really supporting babies who are going to grow up into adults and really helping those babies to thrive in the world.
If it wasn't for Harvest Home, I would still be on the streets. I would probably be still living in a van and still in my addiction. Yeah, Harvest Home pretty much saved my life.
We need your financial support to open up this home. Help us nurture and empower these women as we work to end generational homelessness.